coming to you from the garage to give you some explanation and insight into the designing of Program 23. So as you know, every 6 weeks we rotate our focuses, always having 2 to 3 focuses on each one of those physical characteristics for a well-rounded approach to physical training, never excluding one form of conditioning. For this program, in order, our focuses are aerobic, primary, strength secondary, and power tertiary. The setup for this program is going to be, besides week 1, Monday, Wednesday, Friday conditioning, and Tuesday, Thursday lift days, with Monday and Wednesday being interval days and Friday being a steady state day. Now week 1 is going to be different because we don't have Monday. So Tuesday on week 1 will actually be the first conditioning day, and Thursday will be the second conditioning day, with an optional but suggested Saturday run day. All right, so these intervals on Monday and Wednesday are going to be determined based on your individual ability, as will the time for your steady state that we're going to do on Friday. Before we can program that in, we're going to need to perform a few assessments. So the assessments for this program are going to be 400 meter time trial, 1 minute or a 1 mile time trial, and a 2 mile time trial. Now, we're going to utilize the 400 meter time trial and the 1 mile time trial to determine if you should follow along with our aerobic focus for this program, or if we need to adjust it to a speed-based program so that you can improve your run times. Now, the majority of us, or the majority of you, are going to fall on that upper end, or the aerobic power / volume type work. But just to make sure that we're not missing anyone's needs, if you will, we're going to calculate that and determine. And if you're a person who needs to focus on more speed work, like if you're typically a longer distance runner who's really good at it, we'll be able to determine that based on your speed drop off here. We'll adjust Monday and or Wednesday according to you, so you can get improvements just as easily as everyone else. But for everyone else, it's probably going to be on its aerobic side. Now, what we're going to do for these intervals is on Monday, we're going to take a percentage of the average speed you had for that 1 mile time, and use that percentage that's equivalent to your VVO2, or the slowest speed at which you use maximum oxygen uptake. And what we're going to do is use that speed to calculate your times to complete 400 meters in. Now, we're also going to utilize a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. So however long it tells you or it takes you to run that 400 meters, you're also going to rest for that long. And then you're going to accumulate 15 to 16 minutes of total work. So let's say that you're really fast too, but this is going to be easy for math for me. You have a percentage of this that equals 60 seconds for your 400 meter time trials, or 400 meter intervals. You can also take 60 seconds of rest. Now, to accumulate that 15 minutes of work, you're going to have to run 15 reps. Now, 15 400 sounds absurd, but that's only because we typically hear 400 meter repeats and think of track programs where we're working on running those 400 meter repeats as fast as we possibly can. That's training a different characteristic that would fall more into the anaerobic characteristics as well as partly power. And that's not what we're doing this program. So those intensities aren't going to be as fast. They're not going to be close to as fast as you could possibly run it. That's why we can not only get away with, but need more volume. And then on the same account, let's say you're a bit slower than this person is, and you are prescribed 2 minutes for every 400 meter. So now you, as an individual, have 2 minutes to complete that 400 meter time trial or a 400 meter interval, and you will be able to run faster than that, but don't, because this is all about the accumulation of fatigue throughout the entire session. But okay, so you're that person who has the 2 minute for 400 meter intervals. You're going to get 2 minutes of rest. Now, because we're accumulating 15 to 16 minutes of work for these, and it's taking you 2 minutes for each interval, you're only going to need 8 reps. So almost half the reps as the person who has 60 seconds to run it in. And so what's nice about this is not only are your time trials able to prescribe speeds relative to your ability, but it's also going to accommodate by prescribing a volume relative to your ability. So the fitter you are, the bigger stimulus you're going to need to ensure adaptation or improvement. So if we simply did 8 reps at 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off for that first person, they're probably not going to get a stimulus great enough to ensure an increase in performance, and may or may not even go down in performance. So this takes into account improving the people that are really fit, as well as not overtraining the ones who may not be as fit. Again, it's this prescription that's relative to you as the individual and not just a blanket prescription. Now the same thing's going to happen over here on the Wednesday, but instead we're going to do 800 meter repeats. And because we're doing 800 meter repeats, as well as we're going to have some fatigue that comes about from the Tuesday lift, we're going to go at a lower percentage. We're going to go at 90% equivalent to our VVO2. Now the reason we chose 90% is because it's on the lower end of the range that has been provided via literature to have a significant improvement on aerobic capability and efficiency. So anywhere from 90 to 100% has been shown to be beneficial when implemented like this. And the reason we went 90 instead of just keeping it at 100 is, again, the fatigue we're going to accumulate on Thursday, but also the fact of the psychological aspect of running 800 meters versus 400. It just seems to be more mentally taxing, if you will, for those 800 meter intervals. And then on Friday, the aerobic capacity or steady state day, very similar to how these intervals will take into account your ability to determine your volume. As you can see, half here. We're going to do the same thing for Friday's steady state. So if you're, hypothetically an 8-minute plus minute miler, we're going to have you do 3 miles at this sub-max intensity. Just make sure to follow that minute mile pace. And if you're like a 5.5 minute mile or greater or better, you're going to be on the 5 mile end. Again, so you get that bigger stimulus, that greater amount of volume. Because if you have a faster mile time, it's going to, we can kind of assume that you have more miles under your belt and or you're going to be a fitter individual. So again, we need those greater stimuluses for you. And for the ones that aren't, we need to make sure that we give enough stimulus for improvement, but stay away from potential overtraining. Now, along with this 90% to take into account some fatigue, both mentally and physically, we also have a lift that takes this into account. So on Tuesday, like our main lower body exercise, which is often squats or deadlift or something along those lines, is going to be a high handle trap bar deadlift. And the reason we chose high handle trap bar deadlift for this is that it has a decreased range of motion, so you're going to have less work you have to do, which means less eccentric, less breakdown. But because we can load it so heavy, we're going to get a good neural stimulus so that we can get strength gains and even efficiency gains by training our nervous system to be more efficient than working to train our nervous system and the musculature. But we'll make sure to hit the musculature on Thursday with some heavy reverse lunges, and that fatigue will be okay going into Friday, because Friday will be closer to a recovery run, or at least the soreness and fatigue from Thursday won't affect your ability to execute on Friday. Now, each one of the lifts are going to be total body because we only do those twice a week, and we want to make sure to hit every motion, every body part, however you want to look at it, twice a week. But we're also going to take into, we're going to dive into some complex training, and that's for our power-specific work. So complex training, some people, based on some variation, also refer to it to contrast training or PAP, post-activation potentiation training. But essentially what it does, it takes a big compound movement done heavy and then supersets that with an explosive movement. So for this program, for an example, Tuesday, Power clean will be our big compound movement, and we'll superset that with broad jump. By doing that big compound movement ahead of time, we're going to recruit as many muscle fibers, we're going to recruit a large number of muscle fibers, and then by supersetting that with the broad jump, the activation or potentiation of those muscle fibers being recruited for that lift will allow us to then train those muscle fibers, because they're still stimulated, to fire as fast as possible by executing that plyometric exercise or jump exercise. And we'll do that for both power clean and hang power snatch on Tuesday and Thursday, as well as the deadlift and the reverse lunges. So all the lower body type activities or explosive type activities will take part in that complex training. Now, when you get done every day, make sure to click that bottom right check mark so until it turns green, to show that you have logged and completed that session or that section of the workout, and make sure to do that for every section for every single day. Now, the times you get for your runs won't be on that online platform. You're gonna have to get those from me. So make sure to hit me up, and if anything, email me your times from these time trials ahead of time, so I can email you your specific prescription in advance, so you don't have any delay when you need to start your actual intervals the second week on a Monday. But again, make sure to enter in all your weights, click the check marks complete. If you don't have weights already prescribed, what I want you to do for those is I want you to work up to the heaviest weight possible for those prescribed rep ranges, and make sure to enter those in. And then when you're done with that, the following weeks will have specific percentages programmed, and that way you'll have specific weights based on your ability already programmed for you, and then just follow the program. But again, if you don't have numbers, you're going to have to work up to your heaviest weight possible for the prescribed reps that first week. Now, I wanted to share a story with you that revolves around a program like this. Probably 6 or 7 years ago now, but we had this dive team that trained with us on the regular, and then they got a new team sergeant, and the team sergeant, didn't want to train with us, wanted to do their own thing. And so what their own thing was running every day. And the reason they ran every day is because, he's determined that the 5 mile time was the physical indicator of readiness for them. And so for 2 months, they didn't train with us. And eventually they convinced the team sergeant to let them come back and train with us. But during that time away, they didn't get much lifting, at least not as a team. Some of them may have were able to fit it in on their own time outside of work or regular PT hours. But for the most part, not much lifting was going on in comparison. During that time, they accumulated about 19 to 21 miles a week of running, based on what they told us, which is a lot of running, and like I said, doesn't allow much time for anything else. So the fact that they convinced their team sergeant to allow them to come train with us for 6 weeks, with the understanding that if their 5 mile times did not improve or got worse, they would no longer train with us. They would go back to their former way of PT, which is just running every day. So luckily, this was the style of program that they participated in. Now that 19 to 21 miles of running they were accumulating every week was almost cut in half with this program. So for an example, based on the intervals, 2.5 miles on Monday, 2.5 miles on Wednesday, and then 5 miles on Friday. That works up to 10 miles a week. So again, almost half the mileage they could. Now they had more time to do other training, to work on, longevity, durability, etc. So they could fit in those type of exercises via these lifts on Tuesday and Thursday. So during the course of the 6 weeks, they did all get stronger, but that's also partially because they didn't do much lifting the past 2 months. But they also all improved their 5 mile times. So that just kind of shows that with intensity and volume specific to the individual, with intensities and volume and programming specific to the targeted characteristics, you can do a lot less work and still get great results. And that's kind of what this program is doing, is almost kind of taking that minimum effective dose approach to your conditioning with these intervals in that one steady state to ensure that you can get improvements in your run times without having to do miles and miles and miles. All right, if you have any questions or anything, make sure to hit me up. Otherwise, we'll see you Tuesday for your 400 meter and 1 mile time trials.